In today's video, we're going to be talking about brand, and amazingly, we get to speak to someone from the Twinkl brand team.
Maybe looking at a different colour to that so that you can kind of stand out.
So I'm so excited about this one. Let's see what insider information we can get from Beth all about brand. Hi Beth, it's lovely to have you here as one of our experts on Lizards Lair, because I believe you do all about brand, and not only brand but brand for Twinkl, which is a massive global organisation. So do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I've been at Twinkl for about 5.5 years now, and my degree is in graphic design. So when I started at Twinkl, I was working in the production team making resources, and then after about a year I moved into the brand team. So I've been in this team for just over 4 years now. And yeah, we work on lots of exciting projects, from new products that are coming through, or new campaigns that we're working on, or incentives such as kind of eco and sustainability incentives. So yeah, we work on quite a broad range of things, so it's really exciting.
So you cover all the branding for those products. So what actually is a brand? Like, what makes it a brand?
So a lot of people will think of brand as a logo and a set of colour swatches, and that isn't what necessarily brand is. It is part of what brand is, but the best way to describe it is that brands are a person's gut feeling or a person's perception of an organisation. So creating some branding is essentially creating a persona of how we want to be perceived as an organisation. So that does include a visual identity, so how we look, but it also includes things like how we sound. So what's our tone of voice? How do we phrase things that we say? What do we actually say? So what is the messaging that we want to say to people? What are our actions? So how do we go about things in the right way that feels right to us? And also our like kind of core beliefs and values. All those things kind of make up a persona and make up how we're perceived by our customers and our audience.
That's really fascinating. So it's making like a whole person. So it's not just the logo, as everyone, like you tend to say, logo, but it's actually all that behind as well, and even how you communicate, I guess, like when you're writing tweets and stuff like that. Is that part of the brand?
Yeah, definitely. So our team is kind of, we work quite closely with a creative team, but we're made up of a variety of skill sets. So we've got copywriters in our team, we've got designers in our team, we've got videographers. So kind of all elements of the brand persona we cover.
And can you give an example then of 2 different brands you've worked on Twinkl, and how you've made them those different personas?
Oh yeah. So one of the trying to think about which ones I can tell you about.
Oh, like top secret, like insider information inside Twinkl.
No, I think I can tell you about this one. So Twinkl are going to be releasing a reading scheme soon, which is called Rhino Readers. So we worked on the branding for that, and that was quite nice because it's quite, you know, it needs to engage with children as well as adults. So it's quite a playful brand, aimed at really young children who are just starting to read. So we created a little rhino character that's kind of supposed to follow them on their journey, reading journey, and stand with them. And then kind of in comparison to that, we've recently done a campaign, a marketing campaign called Wave of Thanks, which was all about teacher appreciation and saying thank you to teachers for the work that they did over the pandemic and keeping the world learning. So that was much more of a kind of reserved feel to it, and much more emotion and emotive messaging that went into that one.
So can you give an example, because that sounds really fascinating how different they are, like just a simple way you'd make it more, you know, like one that's for children and one for adults. How would you show that? How would you do that?
So just in Twinkl in general, when we're thinking about the branding that's kind of focused at children and the branding that's focused at adults, there's quite a few simple things that we do. So thinking about your colour palette. So if we were marketing, if we're creating resources that are going to be used by the children, we use quite a broad range of colours that are quite vibrant and engaging. Whereas when we're talking to adults, we take a bit more of a mature approach and use a more restricted colour palette of kind of blues and shades of blues and the odd pops of colour that's not too over the top. Things such as fonts. If we were creating resources, we use a font that's been developed to be really easy to read for children, whereas when we're marketing at adults, we use a slightly more mature font. Things
So
like illustration style differs as well.
So do you, if you were starting a business, would you think about the customers you're aiming for with your branding then? Or do you actually think of your personal identity is more like, which way around would you go for that, if that makes sense?
So always start with your customer. That's always the first thing we do at the beginning of our process. So really understanding who your customer is, what other things that they like outside of your kind of brand or your product. What are their interests? What are they actually looking for from you as a brand? Are they looking for you to play a knowledgeable kind of peer in their lives, or are they looking for you to just be, it depends what your product is really, but are they looking for kind of a fun, playful persona from you? But yeah, really understanding your customer is the starting point.
And how your customer then perceives you, I suppose. So
yeah,
even if my favorite color is green, I could make my logo green, but if none of my customers like green,
yeah,
then actually that's not going to help my business. Okay,
yeah.
well, that's really fascinating. Branding isn't just colors, but do they play a role as to which colors you use when you're thinking of a brand? Are there certain colors you wouldn't use for certain things, or
yeah, definitely. So there's I would encourage people to have a Google of color psychology. So this is all around different colors being associated with different things. So obvious ones such as greens are associated with health and growth or the environment. Blues are often associated with trust and knowledge and strength. So trying to think about how you want to be perceived can be, colour can play a big role in that. It's not just about the kind of colour psychology though, it's also about being recognisable. So having a look at what colours your competitors are using, and maybe looking at a different colour to that so that you can kind of stand out from who else is out there and kind of occupy a different space in your customers' minds.
I suppose that's
and really differentiate.
I suppose it's easy to visualize in a supermarket, isn't it, when you've got all those different brand labels that you can see, but you don't necessarily get that with all business products that you're all next to each other like you would be in a supermarket, but it's still the same psychology behind it, like standing out on the shelf.
Yeah, definitely. And just being memorable. Like if you think of big brands such as Coca-Cola, everybody knows Coca-Cola is red, everybody knows American Express is blue. It's kind of that it helps people remember and helps stick in people's minds.
Yeah, but again, like you said, there's all that other bits behind just the color. It's all of the tone of voice and things like that. It's very fascinating. Is there anything else on brand though that you think people that are starting out their business really should think about when they're thinking of their brand, or what are the 5 things you'd include in a brand?
I think that my biggest tip would just be that kind of understand your customers and talk to your customers. We would usually develop a couple of concepts for brand and then put it in front of people and ask them questions about it and get their opinions on what they think works, which one they would be most engaged with, and take their opinion as where you should go with the direction of it.
Oh, that's really interesting. So it's coming up with ideas, but actually still getting feedback, not only on your product, but actually your brand and how people then perceive you from that. Well, that's so helpful. That's so fascinating. So in terms of marketing, do you do lots of marketing for Twinkl as well in your role?
Kind of. We work very closely with the marketing team on big campaigns, so it is connected, yeah.
So in what ways does it kind of give the marketing team the tools to work with then? Is that kind of how the brand fits in with marketing?
Yeah, definitely. So there's kind of different levels to different marketing campaigns. So if you think about social media, there's usually, brands will usually do kind of a couple of big campaigns a year. So the Wave of Thanks one that I mentioned earlier was kind of a big campaign for us, and that ran over 2 or 3 months of content that we were putting out. So from a brand perspective with that, we would start off by developing the kind of key messaging that we wanted the marketing team to use and kind of weave through all the posts that they were putting out. And we'd also develop a kind of visual brand kit. So is there a particular logo for that campaign? Is there a set of colours that we want to use for that campaign? Any particular photography? And we'd also develop a few kind of personality attributes for it. So kind of this is how we want to make people feel with this campaign, so that when they're writing copy, they can kind of use those as direction. So do we want this to really excite people and make sure that that comes through in the tone of their copy, or do we want it to be really emotive, and does that need to come through in how they're writing?
Wow, that's fascinating. And that's all then part of the brand feeding into how the marketing team, because then at the end of the day, that's how everything's going to be perceived. So
Yeah.
actually you're starting. So yeah, the starting point really is that perception the brand is giving, and it's not just a colour, it's a tone of voice, it's everything.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing. I was blown away at speaking to Beth. There was so much information in that interview. Even watching it twice, I'm not sure I've written everything down. But the fact a brand isn't just about the logo, although that does play a good part in it, but it's about the whole persona that you want to come across. I can't wait to see your brand logos and the reason behind those.